If you look at China's energy strategy right now, the numbers look completely contradictory. They are leading the world in solar panels, wind turbines, and electric cars, building more of them than every other country combined. But at the exact same time, they are building massive new coal-fired power plants at a speed that alarms environmentalists everywhere. Looking at this from the outside, it doesn't make sense. Why would a country spending billions on green energy double down on coal? It is easy to label this as hypocrisy, but the real motivation is much more practical. It has very little to do with climate goals and everything to do with raw security. In Beijing, energy isn't just a policy question, it is a matter of national survival under pressure. And to see why, you have to look at where their energy comes from. China is the world's factory, which means its industries require an enormous amount of oil and gas. Right now, most of that fuel has to be imported from places like the Middle East and South America, traveling thousands of miles across open oceans before reaching Chinese ports. This long sea route creates a massive vulnerability. Nearly all of those tankers have to squeeze through the Strait of Malacca, a narrow bottleneck between Malaysia and Indonesia. The issue is that this waterway is heavily patrolled by the United States Navy and its allies. If tensions ever boil over, say around Taiwan, the United States could easily block this passage, cutting off China's lifeline. In Chinese politics, this is known as the Malacca Dilemma. Land pipelines from Russia help, but they can't carry enough to keep the country running. In a real crisis, a naval blockade means a nationwide blackout, which is a risk Beijing simply refuses to take. This is where domestic coal becomes essential. Unlike oil and gas, coal is already sitting right under their feet. China has massive reserves on its own territory. It is the one fuel source that no foreign military can block and no international sanctions can cut off. So, for Beijing, coal is a physical safety net. They learned this the hard way in 2021 when a severe power crisis triggered major blackouts across the country. Factories shut down, cities went dark, and the grid almost collapsed. That event was a massive shock to the leadership. It proved that they couldn't just phase out fossil fuels overnight without risking total chaos. They realized that until renewables and nuclear are fully mature, they absolutely must keep coal as their ultimate backup to guarantee a stable power supply. In their hierarchy of priorities, keeping the lights on and factories running comes long before reducing carbon emissions. Coal plants are fast to build, highly reliable, and use local fuel. They are a defensive fallback in case of a major crisis. However, there is a key detail that headlines often leave out. China isn't actually running these new coal plants at full capacity. Since they are installing record amounts of solar panels and wind turbines, their main challenge now is grid stability. Solar energy doesn't work at night, and wind turbines need wind. Batteries aren't advanced enough yet to store power for 1.4 billion people. Because of this, these new coal plants are built with a different purpose in mind. They are designed to act as giant safety switches. They sit idle when green energy is flowing, but they can start up quickly if the weather changes or demand spikes. Using coal as a backup is actually what allows China to build out its wind and solar infrastructure so aggressively. But coal is just a temporary fix. For long-term independence, China is investing heavily in next-generation nuclear technology, particularly thorium reactors. Conventional nuclear power relies on imported uranium and requires vast amounts of water for cooling. That means traditional reactors must sit near rivers or coasts, making them vulnerable to water shortages or blockades. To get around this, they built an experimental thorium reactor deep in the Gobi Desert. Thorium is highly abundant in China, mostly gathered as a byproduct of mining other metals. Because these reactors use molten salt instead of water to cool down, they don't need to be near the sea. They can operate in the middle of dry deserts, safely out of reach of any naval conflict. By using a fuel they have in abundance and placing it deep inland, China is moving closer to complete control over its energy supply. They are also targeting uranium independence with research that sounds almost impossible, harvesting uranium directly from seawater. The oceans hold billions of tons of dissolved uranium. The difficulty is that it's highly diluted. It is the equivalent of finding a single grain of salt in an entire swimming pool. To solve this, the China National Nuclear Corporation has set up large research platforms in the South China Sea. Scientists have developed materials that act like chemical magnets to catch uranium atoms as the water flows by. They've already successfully extracted several kilograms of uranium this way. While this process is still far too expensive to compete with land mining, it serves as the ultimate insurance policy. If land imports ever stop, the ocean becomes a virtually limitless supply. Looking at the whole picture, the logic is clear. This isn't a choice between green energy and fossil fuels. It's a dual approach to build a completely self-sufficient system. Coal provides a defense against blockades right now, while solar, wind, and thorium are being built to secure the future. By locking down its energy sources, China is making sure that its industries can keep running regardless of geopolitical friction. Ultimately, energy is sovereignty, and China has no intention of letting anyone else control the power switch. If you liked this video, make sure to like and follow. See you next time.